Sure. Oh. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Solutions Community Conversation Series. The Solution is a community action group that brings together community leaders and members to discuss issues affecting the Black community and to brainstorm and implement solutions and foster progress. Today, we have an esteemed group of panelists to discuss the topic, who is the young Black liberal voice? On our panel, we have Chantel Brown, congressional candidate for the 11th District of Ohio. We also have with us Justin Bibb, a mayoral candidate for the city of Cleveland. And finally, Brian Siggers, president of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats. And I'm your host and moderator, attorney Allison Smith Newsom. So we'll go ahead and get started with a few rules of engagement that are common here at the Solution. The first is that there's no formal time limit on talking, but we do ask each of our panelists to be respectful so that everyone's voices are heard and so that each panelist gets a chance to answer a question if they would like to share and add in their perspective. Conflicting ideas are okay, they're anticipated and expected, and we believe that that's the best way to actually get to a solution and move forward with new ideas and foster change. Forgiveness is the rule. We're all a part of the same community. We're all working together towards the common goal of improving our communities and bringing about positive change. So even if there are conflicting ideas, even if there are things that we say that you may disagree with, here on the panel, we all want to move forward as just parts of the Cleveland community and the Black community, still on good terms after this event. And then finally, we're pulling our resources to get a solution. We each have different networks, we each have different backgrounds and experiences, and all of those things are bringing us here together to share in how to have a solution. The mindset here, I want to help Black people and I'm open to learn. That's it, it's that simple. So if that all sounds good, we'll go ahead and get started. The first question that we have for the panelists: how do you define a liberal, and would you classify yourself as one? Let's see, Chantel, you look like you might have some thoughts.
Oh, do I? Say you are funny. Well, welcome to the party, okay? So liberal. You know what? I think liberals are a little more left of center is how people might describe liberals. It's tough for me to say, and that I would I'm making a bold assumption here, but I think as a person who doesn't ascribe to any labels, but really wear the title of public servant with pride, I just try to find common ground and build from there. So I wouldn't classify myself as one. I think that we use some of these terms sometimes to define others, and it helps us to maybe decide or discern how we might want to treat them. But I think it's important that we just really are careful about listening to the ideas and perspectives of our respective citizens in our society and see if we can get to a place of solution. So that's my take. That's probably not a great way to start this conversation, but that's where I am on that point. So
okay.
And I would agree with Chantel on that. I think these labels of are you a liberal or a conservative, are you a progressive or a centrist? It's only created the divisiveness in our politics, not only in Washington, but across the state and in the city of Cleveland as well. And in my candidacy to become the next mayor of Cleveland, I don't think voters really care, how I label myself, because ain't no Democratic way to create a job and no Republican way to fix a pothole. Am I getting the job done? And so I think it's about, the solution, being solution oriented and the do, not the what. And I think that's a good frame to think about as we think about the how these labels in politics today.
Okay. Brian, any similar ideas or maybe a different perspective?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this conversation with this great group of panelists. I'm excited to be here. I want to echo the sentiments they've made. I believe that the title of liberal is something that's interesting because I agree with Justin. I think that whether you're a liberal, whether you identify as a progressive, whether you identify as a leftist, we all have, we all have shared the same struggle. We're all trying to get the same things done. And title is more of a superficial addition to what we're trying to accomplish here. And I think that it's a little bit inhibiting on the things that we're trying to do because we're too busy with the infighting, whether it be the Democratic Party or whatever it may be, fighting each other when we're all, like Councilwoman Chantel Brown said, we're all left of center. We're all on the left here. We all, want essentially the same thing. We're all trying to fight towards essentially the same goals. We need to work on how we can make a collaborative effort to get that done together and not fight over who considers themselves what, who's the liberal, who's the leftist, who's the progressive. We need to focus on the solution. And I'm glad to be here to discuss that with you guys.
So it sounds like the general consensus is that forget the labels, we're basically action oriented. We have goals and we have a belief system that we want to see moved forward and we want to see put as a focus. So do you all believe that there needs to be a central figure or a group of figures who represent that left of center citizen? Or do you think that because we try to divvy things down to these, minute descriptions that perfectly describe us, maybe there doesn't need to be one common figure or leader that's pulling the liberal agenda?
Well, I will start that one off. I think it's important that we have a diverse group of folks at the table because we're not monolithic. And so while I know we were talking about an individual on the opposite side of the aisle was referenced in a prior offline conversation, like a person like Candace Owens, while I can appreciate her voice, I don't believe that it is all indicative of the right. And so I think it's important that we leave that space open for diverse conversations, diversity of thoughts. But I will also say it is we have been absent that leadership role, like your Martin Luther Kings and your Malcolm X's and those but we have had people like President Obama and Reverend Al Sharpton. And while President Obama hasn't been the most vocal leader, I think he still is looked at in high esteem by the collective. And we look to hear his voice on many issues. And so I think we have it, but just is probably not as prominent and not as for lack of a better word, loud as the one on the right, but still highly respected and highly regarded in a President Obama. And then you have the voice of Al Sharpton, one who I listen to regularly on talk radio when he has his own feature on MSNBC. So we have some semblance of that voice, but I think because we are so diverse on this side of the aisle that it's hard to package a leader in one nice little box. So that's my thoughts on that.
And I'll keep that question posed to the group and add to it. Do you all think we need a new voice as we have those voices age out of mainstream conversation? At some point, they may want to pull back, or they may be less in touch with the up and coming voter, the movement. So do we need a central figure and someone who's generally called upon to speak for the liberal Black voice?
I would say no. I mean, the voices have already emerged. They're on this conversation that we're having today, right? You know, folks like Brian that is doing a hard job of really elevating the role of Black Democrats across Northeast Ohio. Councilwoman Chantel Brown has really done an amazing job of uplifting new people in local government across the county as chairwoman of the Democratic Party. And so I think they already are established. And, you know, I'm of the opinion that the Democratic Party should continue to remain a big tent party. And for Democrats in this state to maintain their competitiveness, we got to continue to expand that big tent. And so if we continue to have conversations about AOC versus, you know, standard bearer Democrats, then it only makes it harder for us to win elections. And so we got to focus on our values as Democrats around economic justice, around civil rights, around economic opportunity, and how to make sure everyone has access to the American dream. And so when we start having these debates about who is the leader of the party, that only helps the Republicans beat us and win more elections. And so I think it's important for us to maintain that strategy moving forward.
Yes, I agree with Justin. I disagree that we need that centralized voice. You know, I believe that when it's very counterproductive to put someone on a pedestal to essentially be the central voice for all that we're trying to accomplish. I think that, like Councilwoman Brown said, a collection of voices is going to be the most effective to really push our agenda forward. And I think that's what we're trying to do here in Cuyahoga County. That's what we're trying to do with the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats, because we have a great collection of voices already within our organization, people who are civically engaged and trying to make differences in their community already. And I agree with what Justin said, that I think it's on us and it's on the party and it's on you know, the stakeholders and the people who are involved to really elevate us and help support us so that our voices can be amplified and heard throughout Northeast Ohio and above, because we are essentially, we want leadership and voices that are reflective of our communities. And that's what I think that what we're doing here with the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats, I think that's what Councilwoman and Party Chair Chantel Brown has been able to accomplish as the chairperson of the chairwoman of the Democratic Party. She's been doing a great job to really uplift and amplify Black voices and also just encourage Black people to run for office and get them in positions so they can be competitive. And I think that that's really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to amplify the voices that we already have in existence.
So I think of two questions from those responses. First, it sounds like there's a lot of great work going on locally and statewide. When we move to the national stage, does your answer change? Do you believe that we can't truly have progress if we don't have, I guess, unification, if we don't have someone or some group pushing everyone towards a common goal, or someone to make final decisions and say, this is what our approach will be? And similarly, do we more often see voices for Black America, I guess, as opposed to just the liberal agenda, which would be broader? We have, you know, celebrities like T.I., Killer Mike, Ice Cube, even Cardi B stepping into that space on the national stage. Are we comfortable with them stepping into that role if there aren't other Malcolms or Martins filling that space?
You know, I think if we continue to wait for the next Dr. King or Malcolm X, we're gonna, you know, be having the same conversation for another 50 years. I get excited to see other celebrities that are moving the culture, like Cardi B and Beyonce, getting involved and talking about these important social justice issues. I think it only helps us as people of color amplify our voices in these spaces in a way that can resonate with voters who historically have been disenfranchised and they feel like politics isn't for them. And so if we can expand our political power by using, you know, celebrity influencers, so be it. I think it's a great thing. And that's what, you know, Malcolm X and Dr. King did during the civil rights movement with Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali, and Sam Cooke. I think many of us saw the movie One Night in Miami, and that taught me a lot about the importance of making sure everybody has a role in the movement. But I would also say it's important to have healthy debate inside the party, because that makes us a competitive party on the long term. And so I think we just got to continue to have a message of expansion, and how do we, find new and innovative ways to meet voters where they are and have robust public engagement.
I agree with Justin. I think that it's great that we have celebrities who are using their voice and trying to using their platform to impact change in their communities, whether it be on a local or national level. I think it's important that we have that. I think that they can be very helpful and supportive in furthering what we're trying to do. When we get them on the same page and we're having these important conversations, and we bring them to the table and kind of explain to them the things that we're trying to do, the change that we're trying to impact, and they can convey our points and what we're trying to do to their bases as large as they are, then we can really get some significant things done, such as what he said with Jim Brown and the other people and other celebrities have been doing. I think that that's important to do, and I think it's important that we do have the debate, because as Justin has said, we're not always going to see eye to eye. There's not one solution. There's no one problem or one solution fixes all. So it's important that we have these conversations. It's important that we have these debates, and because we can have a collaborative effort to get stuff done. When we get stuck in these little stalemates, that's when the work doesn't get done, and then we're all pointing fingers as to who's to blame. I think that working with people who have large platforms to amplify our voices is one significant step in the right direction of really getting stuff done.
I couldn't agree more. I was going to say, I really like what you said, is just the ability for them to amplify our message. We saw this powerful demonstration after the tragic killing of George Floyd with the NBA and the stances they took, and the empowerment they demonstrated through their athleticism and putting their message out before the world really was powerful. And I think that largely impact voter participation as well. So yes, absolutely. It is, it's good to have those voices at the table. But what I really like what you said, Brian, is just making sure that we're clear about the message and the direction, because sometimes, we have a level of understanding or expertise in these areas that they may not, and there's oftentimes work being done, and it would, and we want those voices there by without question, but just having the understanding of the work that's already been done and respecting that from them, I think is critical to the movement. And I would put it in reverse. Like, we wouldn't go to LeBron James and start trying to tell him how to shoot. some of y'all might, maybe y'all might, but but we know, when we know that they're getting great information and amplifying the message, then that is very helpful to the movement. So I would agree with that.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a desire to have multiple voices, but collaboration and partnership. You don't want new voices to come in and take over work that's being done, or organizations that have built roots and done a lot of research, but very happy to have partners to move, the goals and agenda forward. Okay. That actually ties in perfectly with a question that we got from the audience. They said, I see a lot of young Black voices in Northeast Ohio, but I'm not sure where I can get plugged in. Any advice?
Brian, that's a you question.
That's a Brian question.
I'm able to make a shameless plug here. I'm the president of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats. We're a grassroots organization that seeks to mentor, empower, and recruit the next generation of leaders in Cuyahoga County, the greater Cleveland area. You can find out more information on the work that we're doing at neoybd.org. That is neoybd.org. I'd love to have a conversation with you about some of the things that we're trying to do as far as the betterment of our community and our political efforts and community engagement.
And I would second that. It's he has been a great partner to the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. We certainly welcome you into our fold as well. But especially for those who are interested in younger leadership, if you will, that organization we partner with, and we love and respect and admire the work that the Northeast Ohio Young Black Dems do. And a shout out to our Cuyahoga County Young Democratic Club too for our non-Black folks, but everybody's welcome. I think you should be clear about that too, right? Yeah. So, but the focus of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats is to help elevate and recruit and push young Black leaders to the forefront. And I haven't been shy about expressing my desire to have equal or at least representative, reflective representation. You know, we are 30% of the population here in Cuyahoga County, and I think that our elected office should reflect that. So,
if I could just say one more thing. I did see that in the one of the people who's attending is Gabrielle Jackson, a previous president of the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats. I just wanted to shout her out because we would not be where we were today if it weren't for the hard work that she put as the president of this organization. So thank you for being here, Gabby, and thank you for the work that you've done to uplift our organization.
And we just got to get Brian to run for office one of these days soon too. So
maybe one day.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about all of the work that you all are doing in this space, you know, for Democrats, for the Black community. Do you see yourself taking up the helm further, I guess, on filling this role as a liberal voice? Or because, again, we're maybe avoiding labels, do you just see yourself continuing to be involved in politics and furthering any efforts and initiatives that you believe in? It wouldn't be so restrictive, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say 100%. Having the honor, the privilege, and the responsibility of leading the largest and easily the most complicated Democratic Party in this state, probably between Chicago and New York, for real. But that has, I've inherited that responsibility really in a way. And so I don't take it lightly. A lot of people may not realize that that position is a volunteer position. It is unpaid. So it is truly a labor of love, and one that I do because of my desire to seek to empower other people, and particularly people that look like me. It's important, again, to have reflective representation in these leadership roles and these conversations at the table. And so while it was certainly not my goal, sometimes we, again, inherit positions and influence and power. And so if I don't leave where I am better than where I found it, then I don't feel like I'm doing my job. And so I will, with humility, but with bold expectations at the same time, take up that responsibility to try to fill that role, especially because people will approach me often about seeking to run for office. And those who are running for office, they'll ask my opinion on who I think should be winning or, you know, filling those positions. And so I've come to see myself as a person whose opinion has been valued in the community, and I count it as a privilege and a high responsibility, and again, one that I don't take lightly. So I think by virtue of running, and I'll kick it off to Justin, by virtue of running, you just kind of find yourself in this quasi leadership role, if you will, because you are expressing your vision, you are expressing your desire to build or rebuild, whichever label fits, and that comes with taking the helm, whether you like it or not. And if you're running for office, that's part of the job. So I'll kick it over to you, Justin, because I think.
Yeah, I would really agree with many of those sentiments, Chantel. You know, I would say as a first-time candidate for public office, at the ripe old age of 33. I'm just kidding. I turn 34 next month. I'm really excited about that. But, you know, it is a special responsibility to run this campaign in a way that reflects my values of really believing in democracy and the importance of making sure, you know, we are meeting voters where they are across this entire city. And regardless of the outcome of this election, I intend to do whatever I can to uplift, you know, my generation and those coming beneath me to be a part of getting involved in politics to make a difference. You know, I got my start in politics working as a campaign volunteer for the West Clark for President campaign in 2004. And then obviously Kerry won, and I got looped into the Democratic Party, working with folks like Marquise Brown and Angela Woodson and Nick Martin. And I didn't know what I was doing, but they gave me a clipboard and some doors to knock on and some voters to call. And I learned from the ground up. And that's what it's really all about. And so regardless if you're running for office or just volunteering on a campaign, you have a role to play in the movement, and everyone has to make sure they take that with a level of seriousness to make sure we can have a city and a country that reflects our values.
I will, not to be repetitive, but I will, you know, echo some of the sentiments that Justin and Councilwoman Brown have made. I think that it's important that, you know, whatever capacity we're in right now, we're here to serve. And we're here to make Northeast Ohio, the United States, whatever it may be, better than it was than when we first got here. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's, you know, it's important that we play our role. We make sure that we're engaging the people who are going to come after us, because whatever role we're in respectively, we're not going to be in that role forever. So it's important that we lift as we climb. So if we ascend to higher, whether higher office or new positions, we want to make sure that we're building up people to come behind us and make sure that they're in a good position to succeed as well. And they're doing the same thing, because that's how we get real progress and make real change, as we're lifting, as we're climbing. We're making sure that everyone around us is improving as we are as well. I think that we have too much of a lot of people have too much of an individualistic approach and what it means to serve a community, what it means to be involved in public office. And we need to make sure that we remind ourselves that it's important, especially as Black people in this space, that we are bringing everyone up with us, so that we're really building Black political power and really amplifying the voices of Black people in Northeast Ohio, so that they can get to a position where, you know, I agree with Justin. I think that's the best part, is to, you know, volunteer on a campaign. Identify a candidate that you research and you like, and you get involved and you volunteer in their campaign, get some experience, you make some connections, and then next thing you know, you take the nuggets that you've learned from that experience and you apply it into your own campaign, and now you're running for office. So things like that are how we really build Black political power. And I think it's important that we have people like this on this call to really get to drive this point home, because it's on us to make sure, you know, the Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrat, the young Black Democrats who are on this call, to really make sure that we're advancing as Black politicals in Northeast Ohio.
So a question that I had, circling back to a comparison with the left and the right sides, we see Black Republicans push really hard in sharing their perspective and their opinions to try to pull people over to their side, their viewpoint. Do you feel that that's less necessary on the liberal side in the Black community, that you don't have to do as much work to get people to agree with your position? And if that's so, is the effort then focused on general engagement? Are young Black liberals, and I recognize that each of your circles might look a little different than the larger community, but is there a high level of engagement? Are the people that you've interacted with in your campaigns and in your work interested, or are they a little less, do they need less convincing to care about the issues?
I'll take that one.
Say ladies first with y'all, because y'all just gonna be quiet today. I'll just go ahead. So this one, in my role as party chair, no, it's not easier. Everybody is not. It's a lot of work required, regardless to whether you're on the left or the right. I think the challenge that I see and on the Democratic side is probably not too far removed from the Republican side. I think number one, people aren't as enthusiastic about partisan politics. I think when we started that conversation at the beginning about liberal, conservative, what I've been finding is if people want to know where their rental assistance is coming from or where the nearest food bank is going to be, they don't care if I'm a Democrat, a Republican, liberal, conservative. They just want to know if I can help them. But that brings me to my larger point, which is we have to approach people and find out what their needs are. And I think that when we take this kind of broad stroke approach, is healthcare is the big thing that everybody cares about. That was a big topic for the 2020 presidential cycle and before but really economy, jobs and justice are at the forefront of a lot of people's thinking when I'm out in the streets talking to them. We have people that are getting healthcare that they don't necessarily have to pay for, they're insured. That might not be their greatest priority. Or if they live next door to a hospital that they can't get service at, then that is a problem, but it might not be their highest priority. Jobs might be the highest priority, and justice might be the highest priority. Knowing that we as people can walk down the street safely. I mean, as a Black woman, knowing that Breonna Taylor was killed in her home while she was sleeping, that justice, social justice and criminal justice issues are at the top of minds of folks. And so I say that because we just need to be better about making those connections so that people begin to trust us as leaders. Hearing their concerns and then trying to provide them with a solution. And that's hard work. You don't get that done in a cute saying, you don't get that done in a fight for 15 message. You don't get that done in a Medicare for all message. You have to have hard, long conversations with folks sometimes that have been disenfranchised for so long, or have seen so little reward when they cast their ballot. And so that requires work. That requires education and empowerment, having conversations with people. People may not know this, but sometimes it takes 7 times. It can take up to 7 times to connect with a person who has been marginalized or feels disenfranchised from the process to get engaged. 7 contacts, so sometimes if you're lucky, you can get it done in 3. It's an introduction, then you identify a problem. If you can fix that problem, that's your 3rd solution. And then on the 4th time, you talk to that person. They might take you seriously and say, you know what, you're worth casting my vote for. So we have to recognize that it's not a short fix. This is hard work. What we saw in Georgia was not an overnight success story. Taking Georgia from red to blue was a 10-year effort. 10 years. And so we can't expect these things to happen overnight. We've got to have both short-term and long-term strategy to get people engaged. And so I think when people can start to see results when they cast their ballots, their confidence will elevate. But it's also important for the electorate to remain engaged in the process, because we can't just vote on election day and think that our job is done. We have to hold elected officials accountable. And in order to do that, we have to know what their responsibilities are. So one of the things that I did when I first became party chair was I created a voter guide so that people understood the midterm election was my first full cycle in leadership. So I'm telling people to vote for the Secretary of State and the auditor and the Attorney General. But that doesn't mean anything they're like, well, what do they do? How do they impact my everyday life? I don't care about the Secretary of State. Well, the Secretary of State is the person who decides, when we can vote, our accessibility. So it's pretty important to know who the Secretary of State is. With the Attorney General, the auditor decides if our businesses are up to code, they're paying their bills and taxes and all these things on time. So making sure people understand the importance of these roles and how they're so closely tied to our everyday lives, because people might not be into politics, but I tell them politics is into you. Somebody right now is making a decision on your behalf that you don't even know who they are. So it's important that we teach, educate. And I think once we educate, then people feel empowered. And once they're empowered, they're more inclined to engage. So it's hard, and that is hard. But yes, we agree on a lot of things on the whole, but there's so many people who have been let down by elected officials or politicians that we have a long, hard road ahead. And so I don't think it's just as easy as just saying I'm a Democrat, because I get pushback on that. Well, what does that mean to me? What are you going to do for me? How are you different from the other one? So I could go on and on on this subject. So no, it's not easy. It does require some work, and we've got to be prepared to really roll up our sleeves and put on our boots and work hard to win these votes, because people are tired. People are tired of lip service. They want to see real results. And if you're not coming with any real results, then they don't have a whole lot for you. And I know that firsthand.
I would just add one addendum to Chantel's comments, because I think she's spot on. For too long, Democrats have taken Black voters for granted. And you're starting to see that. You saw that in the last election with in 2020, as the share of Black voters who voted for Donald Trump increase in 2020 when you compare that to the 2012 election when President Obama was on the ballot against Mitt Romney. And so you're starting to see an increasing larger share of Black voters going to the Republican Party, particularly among African-American males. And we need to do a better job of articulating why the Democratic Party has an agenda that's going to uplift Black people. It's not just about criminal justice reform and Medicare for all. It's also about economic opportunity and wealth creation and building more Black economic power across this country as well. And we've continued to seize that argument and seize that debate over to the Republican Party. And the Democratic Party needs to do a better job of talking about those pocketbook issues around wealth creation to Black voters across the country and across the state and across the county.
I'll just add that, I agree with both of them. I think that, far too long, we have, a lot of Democrats have just taken the Black vote for granted, and it has built complacency. And I think that while Justin is 100% correct, we were seeing a shift where we're more, especially in 2020, where more Black people did, vote Republican in some races. And I think that one thing that makes it difficult is that I personally believe that the Democratic Party is held to a different standard. We know, we've come to kind of know and accept what to expect from the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party is supposed to be the champion for Black people and for other minorities. And so we expect better from them. So when they don't live up to this standard, it's a little different. It's a little bit more impactful, because it's, we know that we should have low expectations for the other side. But for the side that's supposed to be for us, we want to make sure that they're living up to, their campaign promises. And I think that that's something we need to do a better job of, because we can't just run and say, we're not Republicans, so we should vote for us. And I think that a lot of people believe that that's the path. I'm not the Republican. That's kind of what their ticket is. I mean, their platform is, I'm not the Republican. And we can't run on that. We can't win on that. That's not a winning platform. So we need to make sure that we're having these conversations, these pocketbook issues that Justin's talking about. We're having these conversations with voters, and we're continuously engaging with them, because I can't tell you how many times I've been in a phone bank where I've been canvassing, and I've heard the same thing. People say, you guys don't come around until it's election time and you need to vote. And that's what builds up people's frustration towards politicians, towards politics. They get frustrated and they say, you know what, I'm not getting involved because no one really cares until they want something from me, whether it be my vote, some money, or whatever it is. So I think we need to do a better job of engaging voters, even in off years when it's not general or midterm. We need to do a better job of that, make sure that we're continuously engaged with our constituents, and we're building those relationships up. And that's how we really instill the value of voting, because we're showing them that the Democratic Party and its elected officials truly do care about their constituents, and they're extending out and they're making sure that their people are good. They're making sure that they're understanding what's been going on, and this is what we've been able to accomplish, and we're showing you why you're getting value from your vote. So if we can show them why they're getting value, something tangible, real policy change, real progress that we've been able to accomplish, then then we'll win every election. We just need to get to a point where we can get this done, and that's what's going to really strengthen the Democratic Party.
Allison saw me clutching my pearls because you said off your election, Brian. You know we don't say that around here.
And I stopped after I said that. I know. That's why I tried to clarify. I mean, by not general or midterm.
Yeah. Local election years in Ohio. So this is
not off years. There's no off year elections.
There are no off year elections. Only
no off year elections.
Presidential, midterm, and local election years. So typically this is a local election year. An odd year election in Ohio, our even years are for our presidential and reserved for our presidential and gubernatorial elections. But that's the thing, just breaking some of those old habits, Allison, like letting people, making sure people know every year there is an election every year. Presidential elections get all of the attention because they're national news, so they get a lot of earned media, so people know they're on the radar, and people are keenly aware that an election is going on, whether they want to know or not, because they spend all the money on TV commercials and all of those things, and again, free. They get a lot of earned media. Governor's races are the same thing. They're large in scale. The local news will feature their campaigns through earned media. But during a local election year, like a place like Cuyahoga County, there's 59 communities in Cuyahoga County. And so you can't possibly feature all of the community candidates, in the news cycle. Even if you gave every community 30 seconds, that's your whole news cycle just on that alone. So it's incumbent upon us, again, the electorate and the leaders, to make sure that people are continuously engaged in the process. So I find myself, like Brian said, the engagement has to continue even when you're not on the ballot. And being the chair of the party, I'm involved in campaigns when I'm not on the ballot. I'm like, I'm here, but I'm not on the ballot, but I am on the ballot this year. So, hey, y'all. But seriously, we have to keep the conversations going and making sure that we have regular community meetings. And it's also, I'm gonna be a little selfish right now, because I also get frustrated because sometimes there are elected officials like myself who have had regular community meetings only for, a handful of folks to show up. And we're grateful for those handful of folks, but we also as electorate owe it to ourselves to follow the people that we are empowering to represent us, to make sure that they are representing our interests. And so that might require a little bit of work on our end. But I can assure you it will be well worth it, because the number of people that participate in the political process during times when the candidate may not be up for election, we pay attention to those folks because they're involved, they're engaged. And the last thing that I'll say is that we have limited resources, we have limited time, and we have limited dollars. Currently, I represent 100,000 people as a county council representative. Now, I just want you to do the math. If I sent one letter out to every person that I represent, just the postage alone is $50,000. And that's just one letter. So when we talk about that connection, when you have to, connect with people at least 3 or 4 times, we're talking about $200,000 just to, so when we talk about strategy and why elected officials or politicians or candidates whittle down the pool of people, they whittle it down to people that they know are voting, that are participating in elections. That's the strategy. So if you want a politician to pay attention, voting is the simplest way to get a politician's or an elected official's attention, because now you're amongst that number that we know is engaged in the process. Otherwise, I'm hit or miss with trying to reach 100,000 people. Now, in my particular race, I think we ended. I was unopposed in my last election, but there were 30,000 people that participated in that race in an unopposed seat, which I'm humbled by that. But that's still low when you compare how many people that I serve, right? But of that 100,000, I would say maybe 80,000 of them are registered voters, and that's not a terrible number when you think about the fact that some people just aren't going to be registered to vote because of their religious beliefs, or when you have people that aren't quite of age yet. So of that 80,000, 30,000 participated, and of that 80,000, even a smaller sliver are registered Democrats or registered Republicans. So I'm using this, what I'm trying to explain to people who might be watching is that your participation is so meaningful to get the attention of the candidates. And so when we hear sometimes that we don't hear from you, we need to hear from you also, like you want to hear from us. So, and the easiest way to do that is to cast a ballot.
So, something you said about meetings with constituents, town halls that might not be well attended, raised a question for me. I know, we talk about a balance of having different types of engagement, different people with different backgrounds. So based on what people are interested in, they might be involved with grassroots or community organizations. What balance do you all think there should be for citizens to mix, I don't want to say street justice, but protesting, nonprofit work, volunteering with political engagement? What are some ways that they can get involved outside of just voting time to continue to hold their elected officials accountable? I think that's something we hear often. What does that look like?
So as an elected official, that looks like coming to council meetings. That looks like coming to the town hall meetings. Council meetings are open to the public. They're scheduled regularly. Now, because of the pandemic, many of them are virtual. So if you can't attend live and in person, they are posted. So just seeing what's happening in the community, I think, is a valuable way to know what's happening and to know where your elected official stands on issues. Regular communication, reaching out either by phone or email if you have an issue or an idea. It doesn't always have to be a complaint. One of the things that I'm proud of as a legislator is that we had a constituent, shout out to Rico Dancy. He's in charge of the Black Lives Matter Deaf and Hard of Hearing division nationally. So, but he lives here in Cleveland. He came and approached us at a county council meeting and let us know that we didn't have text 911. There's 25,000 people in Cuyahoga County who are deaf or hearing impaired. And so how do they communicate in an emergency situation? That was important to me to lead the initiative to get this messaging platform activated. And I did that. And he wasn't a constituent. So bringing ideas to us and then making sure that you have people who are willing to use their political will to get things done, right? It's one thing to sit in these seats, but what are you getting done? And so when he presented that to us, I took up the charge and said, I want to get this done. So that was one of the initiatives that I led. So now we have Text 911. It didn't get a lot of headlines, but it has literally saved lives. I mean, there was a woman who was rescued in her car. She wasn't hearing impaired, but she was with her abuser. And so she used Text 911 to get rescued while on the freeway. And so these are the things that we do to change and impact people's lives. So that's how you do it. You come to meetings when you can, and if you can't, look them up. And if you have an interesting idea or suggestion, share it with your local elected official and see if it's feasible. And if it's feasible, can they get it done? And that's how you measure progress. And that's how you measure change. And that's how you make sure you're holding people accountable.
Justin,
I would just say activism comes in all forms, shapes, and sizes. You can be a leader in the Black Lives Matters movement and be protesting in the street because we need that agitation to stir up the social consciousness of our city and in our country. But you can also be a civic leader and advocate in the boardroom for better pay for workers, for more investment in underserved communities of color. And so, as I like to say, from the streets to the suites, we need everybody engaged to uplift our city and in our nation. And without that kind of collective responsibility and activism, we won't see the change we need. And so everyone needs to play a role in the movement.
I agree. I think that everyone has a role. Everyone has their own responsibility in the movement. I think that it's important that we do have that level of activism and advocacy, independent from straight politics, because two things. One, we do need people to stir up that social consciousness in our city, and two, sometimes we can't wait for legislation or for politicians to have their moment to come to Jesus and see the issues the way we see them. And it goes back to what we've been kind of talking about before, politics don't stop on election day. That's what goes back to that continued engagement piece that we discussed when we need to continue to hold the people accountable when they're in office. So that means that, we need to make sure that sometimes we need to put pressure on politicians, like, this is what we need. We need to do something about this. We need to make sure that you're living up to your promises on the campaign tool. We need to make sure that you're responsive to the community's needs or responsive to the issues that are plaguing the Black community. So that's where that Black Lives Matter and other nonprofit organizations, that's where they have their role to kind of make sure that they're aware of these issues and have a plan to address them. So I think that, like you said, everyone has a role. And I think that those roles are equally important.
Thank you all. So we had another question come in, and we did get started a few minutes late. So if you all have the time and can bear with me, we'll pose this final question and then wrap it up. So a bit of a pivot. We want to hear each of your thoughts on what you think we can do to build Black wealth. Justin, this kind of ties in a bit with one of the types of civic engagement that you talked about with advocating, in the suites for better pay. But also that's something that, Chantel, Brian, you all have mentioned with the broader agenda of the Democratic and Liberal Party of having economic incentives and progress and aid. So what are your thoughts, if you have any prepared, on what we can do to build Black wealth?
I would just say a couple of things on this point. And kudos to Chantel, who at the county continues to lead an effort to really address the disparity we see in who's getting what kind of contracts at the county. And the fact that, nearly 0.5% of minority-owned businesses are only accessing, the billions of dollars that the county is spending every year for services is a shame and should outrage all of us. And so ending that disparity in our county and in our city is a good first step to building Black wealth across this region. And we got to do the same thing at the city. And as mayor, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I get people the tools and agencies to buy back the block, because that's how you get real systemic change.
Love it. I will piggyback on that. Yes, with the results that came out from our disparity study, I think it's important to point out that we're now in a place where we can legally set aside contracts for gender and race, and that is not an easy place to get to. That was a 10-year undertaking. And for those who don't know, disparity studies are required before you can move to this place where you can have legal standing. You might know something about this too, Allison, with your law background, but you have to be in a place where you've done everything you can in a neutral way, if you will. So approaching it through small businesses with the theory that the rising tide raises all boats. And I like to say, but you got to have a boat first, right? So, so when we talk about small businesses, our non-Black businesses don't have patient capital. And Justin, you can talk to this with your banking background. We often don't have the resources to kind of tide us over in our startup phase. So oftentimes we're done before we even get started, right? And so making sure that we're holding the Biden administration accountable for the initiatives that they are putting forth to address some of these issues around Black business and entrepreneurship and financial literacy, and making sure that we understand, business plans. I'm so blessed to meet a young man just yesterday who started a business, but it was never his plan. Sometimes we just kind of fall into these businesses, but then my thinking immediately was, God bless him for this business, but he's going to need some help in sustaining it and making sure that he has the support to file the proper paperwork, to maintain the business, and all of those things that can be pitfalls for new business owners, is particularly those who have not taken, who have not studied, or who have not had that coaching as it relates to business. So those are some of the resources that the Biden-Harris administration is committed to putting in our community to make sure that we get those things to be able to not only start the business, but sustain the business and then expand and grow the business. And finally, I just want to circle back to the disparity study. 5 years. When I first got elected in 2015 is when I first came onto county council. The data was about to expire from the first disparity study. And had it not been for me pushing to get this community benefits agreement out of the administration, and shout out to Executive Budish for taking that on, we would have had to start the clock over. So this journey has been a long and an arduous one, but we are now at a place where we can uplift with very great and specific intentions Black businesses through set aside contracts, and I intend to see that through to the end. So thank you for that.
I'll just a couple thoughts that came to mind. Or I think that education and coaching are important, as Councilwoman Brown has said. I'm a member of the 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland, and in our efforts, we've we have 4 pillars that we focus on. One of them is financial literacy, and we make sure that we do our share to put on workshops to, whether it be tax, filing taxes, young entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurship. We want to make sure that our community has this knowledge so that they can be successful should they start their own business. But like Councilwoman Brown said, capital is important. So it's important that we, make sure that we need to make sure that we have capital so that we can, start the business. And when it does get off the ground, it's on us to make sure that we're supporting our community and supporting their businesses and not asking for discounts and other things that can cut into their bottom line. I think that that's one of the key things that we need to focus on. We need to make sure that we're supporting Black businesses and we're keeping them afloat. So, I don't want to, be too repetitive, because I think that, Councilwoman Brown and Justin have said some great things already. But I think that, we really need to make sure that we're identifying these businesses and we're making sure that they have capital that they need to sustain, and then we're keeping them in business. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you all. Before we wrap up here, I want to give you all a chance to share any final thoughts. And I want to thank you again for joining us. This has been a great discussion, and encourage anyone who has any additional questions to send them in, and we'll share them with the panelists.
Y'all go see, I just can't take this awkward silence.
We're just gentlemen,
Okay, all right, gentlemen. Yeah, y'all are my brothers. So I want to thank you for the privilege of the conversation, especially with these guys. Like I mean it when I say they are my brothers. The affinity is real. The camaraderie, the friendship is genuine, and I just want people to continue to look out for us. There again, it's a local election year, so I'm just going to take a point of personal privilege and say, if I've said anything to inspire you to support my candidacy, please, 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 by all means, visit ChantelBrown.com. You can learn more about me and my accomplishments and my vision as it relates to the voice, the young Black voice. And I'm just so humbled that I'm still considered young. What's the cutoff for young? Because I feel like I'm getting there, but I'll take it because I'm definitely the youngest candidate in this race for Congress. So ChantelBrown.com, ChantelBrown.com, ChantelBrown.com. We welcome volunteers, we welcome donations, and we welcome any ideas that you have and invitations for other conversations like this, because this is what I love to do. So thank you, Allison. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Brian. It has certainly been a privilege to be in your good graces on this panel, and I will relinquish my time to whomever want to follow.
I would echo that as well. It's been an amazing conversation, and thank you, Allison, and to the entire team for organizing. And always good to be in fellowship and community with my sister Chantel and my brother Brian. Continue to uplift our community and put in the work. We know it's hard, a lot of long days and nights, but we got to keep pushing to make our community better for our people. And in this campaign, it's really about urgency, right? It's March 21st, and we are the only announced candidate in the race thus far. And we are showing the community that we have the courage to lead this city on day one, because I can't wait, we can't wait, and Cleveland can't wait. So if you want to hear more about our message and our vision, go to bibforcle.com, and it's forcle.com, and check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we welcome volunteers, donations, and your ideas to figure out how we can continue to transform our city for the better.
All right. Again, I want to thank you, Allison. Thank you, Jerry, for organizing this. It's always a privilege to be here with my brother Justin and Councilwoman Brown, my sister from the Democratic Party. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate this conversation. It's always great to be on stage with these two heavyweights in Cuyahoga County. And again, I want to just make sure that we don't, as the president of Northeast Ohio Young Black Democrats, we are an inclusive organization. Whether that be race, gender, or thought, we're a diverse group. Whether you identify as a liberal, whether you identify as a progressive, whether you identify as a leftist, we welcome you here, because the diversity of thought is what makes us who we are. It's what makes us effective, and it makes us, versatile. So I think that, we welcome you to join us. neoybd.org. I encourage you guys not to get caught up in the titles, because at the end of the day, this debate, this conversation is important. We're not always going to see eye to eye. But I think that at the end of the day, we have a general idea of where we want to be, and a general idea of what progress looks like for us. The way we get there, the way that the path we take can be contested, but at the end of the day, the destination is what's important. So please consider joining us. I hope this conversation does not stop here. It's a continued conversation that we need to have to really make sure that we're making Cleveland and Cuyahoga County a better place.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time, for your thoughts, and for your work. We look forward to seeing what you do from here in the streets to the suites, to quote the great Justin Bibb. And with that, we will end it. I really appreciate it. And thank you all.
Thank you.